The US is well advanced in preparations for a war on China. The key document is called the O-Plan, which is the operational scheme that lists all the details. Now, we don't have the whole document, which is top secret, of course. But there have been enough details shared or leaked over recent years that we actually know many of the steps. Here are 28 of them. Batan. The US quietly carried out a major operation last summer to deepen the harbour on the island of Batan, south of Taiwan, so that warships can use it on their way to the China coast. Landing strips. The US team has compiled a list of long, flat areas in Asia that can be used as aircraft runways, used in launching fighter jets to bomb China. The strategy was revealed at an Air Force conference. Practice runs. Last year, US troops held exercises specifically preparing for an invasion of China, along with a range of other troops, including Japanese, Australians, and Indonesians. Taiwan training. Defying both international law and the agreed status quo that keeps the peace, the US military more than 3 years ago landed troops in Taiwan secretly to train soldiers. The latest training course is showing them how to use and attack amphibious vehicles. Disinformation. The mainstream media has already started hiding the fact that Taiwan is legally part of China, and instead rather deceitfully reports that China claims Taiwan. Hundreds of news outlets already carry that line. Now, the Pentagon has developed a division called Perception Management that will ensure that the story the world hears is the one they have written, which will say that China started to invade Taiwan entirely unprovoked, and the US nobly stepped in to help. Conflict creation. The Philippines, under new pro-Washington leader President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has been working hard already for months to create conflicts in the seas, which the media then used to bolster their China is aggressive narrative.
It is absolutely infuriating how much Western media continues to lie to the general public about what's happening abroad. By now, many of you know about the Chinese and Philippines incident where China was harassing the Philippines. I was a qualified surface warfare officer. I was stationed in Japan and traveled to the Philippines several times. I will make a disclaimer, the Philippines are terrible ship drivers. And to be a qualified surface warfare officer, you have to essentially memorize what are known as the rules of the road. The rules of the road essentially tell you how to drive a ship and interact with others, both domestically and internationally. After watching this video several times, who do you think was in the wrong, the Chinese Coast Guard or the Philippine ship? And before you answer that, look at where this ship is at and you can see its wake. It was originally behind the Chinese Coast Guard ship. This is clearly what's known as an overtaking situation, and the ship that is in front, that's known as a stand-on vessel. They keep their course and speed. The giveaway vessel, which would have been the Filipino ship, should have stayed away from the Chinese ship. Rule number 13, any vessel overtaking any other shall keep out of the way of the vessel being overtaken. And when you look at this wake, you can literally see the curvature there where they turn towards the Chinese Coast Guard ship. And remember, the Chinese ship is supposed to maintain course and speed. This Filipino ship, you can literally see the wake where it crossed in front. And what's really strange about this footage is the amount of Filipinos that magically had phones and cameras out to record this specific event. Which makes me really speculate that this whole situation was created to create more anti-Chinese sentiment in the US. Nah, the US government would never do that.
9 bases. Large sums of money have been paid in the Philippines so that it hosts new China-facing bases. Now, there were 5 in the past, but that has suddenly been boosted up with 4 new ones to 9 in total. Okinawa. For 12 years, the US has been promising to gradually reduce its unpopular military base in Okinawa. But Okinawans complained that the process has mysteriously slowed down to a dead halt. Clearly, the Pentagon wants the soldiers to stay there for use in attacking China. Camp Schwab. Also on the coast of Okinawa, pristine waters full of fish and coral are being filled up to make a landfill bigger than the entire Pentagon. This will house US helicopters and Osprey rotating rotor airplanes, purely for use in attacking China. PNG problems. While China was donating infrastructure to Papua New Guinea in 2023, the US flew in to splash the cash to buy the use of 3 airports, 2 ports, and 1 naval base. The US is also renovating Lombrum Naval Base on the island of Los Negros in the waters north of the island. Comms jam. Electronic magnetic pulse weapons will be employed to jam communications throughout the coastal regions of China and as far as they can reach inland. GPS to vanish. Now, the US has already at least once weaponized the GPS system against Chinese ships, and they will do so again, but on a much larger scale next time. This will force the Chinese to use their much younger homemade system. Banking on trouble. Now, the world's main money transfer system, called SWIFT, will be instructed to allow no money to go into or out of China, and they've already weaponized this against Russia. Doorstep delivery. Already standing by in the Pacific are special ships, like this one, which beach themselves on enemy land and then discharge 900 tons of attack forces. That's armoured vehicles, manned troops, and supplies, and so on. Danger from the skies. Army paratroopers have recently been training in Hawaii for a mission that would see them ready to land in rural areas outside Chinese cities, immediately ready to fight. Star Wars. The Pentagon has a special division working specifically on how to attack China from space. One plan is to rain kinetic energy projectiles over the country. Now, these are basically giant spears which are pulled by gravity until they're traveling at up to 10 kilometers a second, with each one landing with the power of a nuclear bomb. Sea paths blocked. Now, the US plans a blockade of everything that could go in and out of China by sea by using what they call the first island chain and the second island chain. Basically, these are fronts that Washington, D.C. has bought and paid for. Lawfare. Now, legal acts will be passed in the US demanding that the whole world boycotts China, exactly as the US did with Russia 3 years ago. Black Ops. Now, the US has been quietly penetrating parts of China with trained troublemakers, just as they did in Hong Kong. These people will trigger street battles, which the Western media will then do their usual thing and portray them as pro-democracy protests. Furthermore, CIA and US Army intelligence groups will conduct black ops inside China in a bid to create as much chaos as possible. Drones. Now, the US has a long record of successfully using killer robots in the skies. Now, the new generation ones, which are still technically under wraps, have AI built into them so they can kill people without human help. Airstrikes. The US is currently letting its F-35 pilots practice dropping bunker buster bombs on Yemen, on real targets. Now, these bombs can go through 20 feet of solid rock to kill people hiding in shelters. And guess what? They're making a whole new set of such bombs as fast as they can for use in China. Cash theft. Now, political leaders in the US and the UK and European nations have already said that they consider themselves entitled to freeze, take, and spend the assets of countries they judge to have behaved aggressively. Now, tech bros. Now, the Pentagon has a division that monitors all major tech companies from Google to OpenAI to Meta and so on to pull them as needed into the war effort. And of course, they won't be given a choice. Okay, there we had many of the steps in the O plan for a US war on China. There are many more. Of course, there's no guarantee that they will take all these steps or in what order they will take them. But one thing is worth noting. Many of these steps have already been taken. Stay safe. Keep those eyes peeled. Peace.